Happy effing Friday, everybody. A verbal promise protected Luz Ramirez for exactly 0 seconds when the blame started rolling downhill. If you've ever trusted an I've got your back and then been left holding the bag, this episode's for you. Let's go. Welcome to the show, everybody. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Luz Ramirez. We're in some of the same circles in Owners Club, getting to know each other a little bit better over this last year. She's got deep experience in the nonprofit world. I believe she helped organizations recover from kind of dying and putting systems and processes into place and really stabilizing them and returning them to health. Welcome to the show, Luz.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dave.
You're welcome. So now you've done that for years and years and years, but you're moving out of that now and you're moving into RV parks, the acquisition of those properties and kind of applying your skill set, doing all these systemizations, and I guess going to go and grow those properties.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I discovered over the many years that I've been doing the work that I've been doing, so I was in the education side of things. I worked in education for 16 years. I started out as a teacher. I worked my way up. I have a business degree. And so I ended up eventually, it's a long story how I ended up teaching, but my degree is in business. I am bilingual, so I ended up in the bilingual program teaching, but my intent was always to be in business. And so I did end up working in the business side of the education system. So I ran departments, I created departments. And so that was a big bulk of my experience, wrote grants. Then I moved into the nonprofit world where I was the executive director of a nonprofit and again, wrote for grants, created programs, created departments. And then from there, that agency went through some struggles because I inherited a big mess is what I inherited. So I managed to keep it afloat for a while, but then our state had a state budget impasse when they had a new governor. And so most of the funding that came through that to that agency was government funding. And when we realized that it was not going to survive without the funding coming, if the budget did not get approved, I was going to have to close the agency or I was going to have to figure out something really quick. So my solution to that was to work with another nonprofit and do a merger and acquisition. And so we went through that whole process and I learned a new skill set, which was how to take over a nonprofit, how to merge it, how to dissolve it, everything from A to C. So once I had gained that experience and I came to the other agency, I went into the new agency as the chief administrative officer. And there we repeated the process. We acquired another agency, did the same thing, stabilized, reduced unnecessary programming, increased the deliverables, the outcomes, added staff, secured more funding. And I actually left that position in the beginning of last year. So I am actually a full year, almost a full year of having left my W-2. So what I did was I helped that organization go from one program, that agency from one full program to 14 programs when I left. In the process, acquired $40 million in grants. And so a lot of that has been the skill set of that I've gained over time. And most of it is, I would say, is due to putting systems and processes in place. And so that's the area where I thrive.
It's pretty funny because my introduction to you was as the grant writing specialist, and only to learn today, you're kind of not wanting to do that so much because of, like you said, the time commitment for that, but you're still offering consultative services for that.
Yes. I'm still consulting on that. And so anybody who's interested in finding out how they can, maybe they're looking at some grants or they have projects that they know that they would be eligible for grants, or maybe they're just trying to explore that. I have consultations that they can book. I sit down with them. I review, actually, I give them a form that they fill out beforehand. They give me information on what it is that they want to do, where they are with their business, what experience they have. Do they have staff? What's their capacity? What's their need? Once I have all that information, I sit down and I review it. And based on what they're trying to get to, what the end result is, I do an analysis. I put a plan together, some information together for them. And then during the consultation, we'll go through the whole thing and say, okay, based on what you provided for me, you are at this stage. of your business, or you are at this stage of the process. What you want to do is this. Here are some options for you. You can go here, here, or here. Or maybe they're not ready yet for that and they just need to do some more exploration. Then I give them some steps to proceed with. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm also providing some consulting in the way of coaching. So if they want to take it to the next step, I can go ahead and guide them through the process. There might be businesses that have a whole team in place and they just don't know the pathway. They don't know what steps to take. I can provide that guidance. So through the coaching, I can let them know, here's what you need to do to prepare for it. Here's where you need to start looking. Grant writing is not I wake up today and say, oh, I'm just going to write a grant and send it out. There's a lot of planning behind it. There's a lot of exploration behind it. Sometimes you can say you can find a grant, but the grant's not going to be available for 3 months. So the actual notice is not going to be released for 3 months for you to be able to start working on it. And then the application is probably not open for another 2 months after that. So there's a lot of prep that you have to do beforehand. So doing a consultation with me allows them to kind of explore the process, explore what they need to do to get ready for it, and then that time for them to prepare for it. So like I said, in the coaching, then I can guide them through let's prep you for applying for a grant. Okay, now the grant is available. This is a timeline you need to follow and implement. This is what the next steps are. And so kind of guide them along that process.
Well, it's definitely on my checklist to corner you, I think, in Miami later this week to talk grants for Sanctum Housing. That's our affordable housing initiative in Florida. So I intend to get you on the advisory board for that.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Duly
yeah.
noted.
Thank you. So when did you said you went to school for business, but you were doing teaching earlier, and that you said that was bilingual stuff? You're
Yeah.
teaching.
So in the state of Illinois, I don't know about just Illinois. I'm assuming all over the US, there is a scarcity of bilingual teachers. And so the state of Illinois has set it up so that you can secure a temporary teaching certificate if you are bilingual. So it goes with the process that you have to take a test, you have to demonstrate proficiency in the other language. And let me go back a little bit further. When I was younger, in my teen years, I actually did a lot of volunteer work with churches and the school district. So whenever they had summer programs, I was a volunteer and I would help out with the youth and I would help out with the kids. So during the years, I would come back from college and I would continue doing that. So I grew up doing that, and then I would go away to college and I'd come back home, and then during the summers I would continue doing that. My family was very active in the community always. So they got to know me, and the school district, most of the people in the bilingual program, they already knew me. So when I graduated, they sought me for a position. And I let them know, I'm like, well, I'm not interested in teaching, or else I would have gone after a teaching degree. And so they kind of sugarcoated it and said, well, you could just do this for, a semester. You can do this for a year, until you figure out, until you find a full-time job, until you figure out what you want to do. At the time, I had been working in retail for many, many years in administration. I was a manager, and I just continued doing that after I graduated while I decided what I wanted to do with life. And I decided that, okay, let's test this out. And the way that we did it is I taught during the summer. So I took the test. I passed, of course. I got my teaching certificate, and I was going to teach only during the summer. And so that's how it all connected. So they brought me in just for the summer. And then then they tried convincing me to take on a part-time kindergarten teaching position. And it was part-time. It was just half a day. And I'm like, okay, I could do that. So I went and did the half day. Next thing I know, I'm teaching full-time. So I did that for
Gotcha.
5 years. Yep, they got me. And I started pursuing my teaching certificate. And so I did secure my teaching certificate over those years. But I need to be challenged. My personality is one that I have to be challenged for me to continue doing what I'm doing. And when I feel I'm no longer challenged, I need to move on to something else. And I enjoyed teaching. I loved it. But every year I just found myself getting bored. So my kids were reading, every year my kids would start reading it sooner and sooner and sooner, to the point that I was like, okay, it's no longer a challenge. Okay, these kids
Hmm.
start reading within a few months. They're learning English, they're learning Spanish. So I kind of hit the point where I was like, okay, this is no longer for me. And God puts things before you when you least expect it, or when it's time for you. You just have to be open to the signs. And I didn't know this until recently. I started looking back and going, wow, All these shifts and changes in my life have been because of signs and opportunities that were presented before me. So I walked into the teacher's lounge one day. I had already hit the point where I'm like, I'm done. I'm so done. I'm bored. I can't do this any longer. And I was standing there making copies at the copy machine. And I looked up and on the bulletin board, they were looking for a recruiter, a teacher recruiter. And the requirements were they had to be bilingual, they had to have a teaching certificate, they had to have a business degree. And I kind of went, huh, that
Hmm.
sounds like me. So I picked up the phone, I called HR, I had an interview, and I got the job. So I worked in HR for 5 years. And then from there, I kind of moved up into other positions. Then I became the executive director of a student assignment center. And that leads me to the one story that I want to tell you about. So,
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead. What's been the biggest mistake?
so I don't love to call it a biggest mistake. I think these are all
Challenge.
learning lessons. Yeah, challenges. Okay. And honestly, it really wasn't a something that I could see happening. So I'll just go back a little bit. So in this department, I was the executive director of the Student Assignment Center, and this district went through a whole desegregation lawsuit way before I came. After I graduated from the school district, but after before I became a teacher. And what the lawsuit stated was that not the state, the city, the school district, by design, was discriminating against races and putting students in schools based on where they live. There's their area that they lived in, but that those schools were underperforming, and they were intentionally putting teachers there that were new, did not have the experience. Anyway, everything led to this lawsuit, and as a result of the lawsuit, the district had to do some remedies. And one of those remedies had to do with the job that I had held before, which was hiring teachers using DEI, and that's why I became the recruiter. They needed somebody who was bilingual. Anyway, then this department, they had implemented a zone system or a choice then zone system for putting students into schools, which resulted in this department having to manage enrollment at the beginning of the school process, which is at preschool, kindergarten.
Hmm.
And then the next step would have been in middle school, and the next step would be in high school. So families had the option to select what school they wanted to go to. And then there were some priority choices in there. They could select the middle school and high school of choice, the elementary, middle, and high school of choice. If they didn't live in that area, well, if they had priority if they lived in the area, and they had priority if they already had a sibling living there. So my department was the one that managed that choice process. So it was a process that we did every single year. Any incoming students at every step of the level, we had to take applications for the choices that parents were submitting. We had to run a lottery. So it was a very involved system. And it was over the entire district. So it wasn't just for one level, it was every grade, every school in the district. And we had, I think, 52 schools at the time. So every summer, we would handle thousands of registrations coming through. We would have new students, and then we would have the students transitioning between schools. And it was basically a predictable, time-sensitive, people-facing job, okay? And every year we did the exact same thing. We opened up the process in January for the choice, but then we would run all the processes and the enrollment and the transitions during the summertime. So for summertime, we already knew that we would spend X number of hours with families coming in. Each family would come in and spend about an hour, hour and a half working with one of our enrollment specialists, and they would go through the whole choice process. They would submit their application. It was a lot, okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, during budget cuts, leadership decided to reduce my department in half. And so when my director, she was on the cabinet, she worked directly with the superintendent. When she told me that this was part of the plan was to reduce my department, I warned them and I told them that would cause many delays, and actually would cause a huge backlog, because the work that we did was very time sensitive. It could only be done during the summertime, right before school started, and there was no way for us to process anything faster. And already families were spending an hour to hour and a half with each one of our assignment specialists. Anyway, I wrote a formal impact analysis outlining staff capacity, the wait times, what families would be experiencing. I was told that leadership understood and that they supported me. And so I felt like I did my my due diligence, and I did what I needed to do, and I informed them. Everything I documented actually happened exactly as I predicted when they did go and reduce my staff to half. So at the time, my full department, I believe I had 7 assignment specialists. I ended up with 3 assignment specialists. I had my assistant, my executive assistant, who was only part-time working with me, but the rest of the time she handled the front desk, taking families in, working with families. And then I had, I believe, 3 individuals who would do the screenings. And so I also ended up having screeners reduced. So we really were operating at half the staff.
Mm.
Anyway, what that resulted in was we had families waiting up to 9 hours in 9 non-air conditioned hallways in the middle of summer. Yeah. Because only the office was air conditioned. Our office, our space, we were in an old high school, which was the first high school the school district had. And this high school had been converted to the alternative high school. So half of the school was actually one area of it was my department. The rest of the building was the alternative high school, but they didn't have any air conditioning because during the summers, why would they air condition this building when they didn't have any students in it? So the only air conditioned area was my office area. So we did not have the capacity to have families inside. We had enough for the usual, which is what we had during the year, which was about 10 families, and the rest had to wait in the hallway. We also had to do it on a first come, first serve basis. So when they came in and they signed up, the earlier they came, that's where they were on the list, and then we would go in order of families arriving. Well, if we worked with each family an hour to an hour and a half to get them into a slot, and we had only 3 assignment specialists, we were only able to serve 3 families at a time for an hour to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, depending on how many
Mhm.
children they had, because the more children they had, the longer the process would take. So now think about that. Families sitting in the hallway, they have to sign in, first come, first serve. They don't know when their time's going to be up, and they're just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting,
Sweating.
sweating and waiting with children because they had to bring their children too. Children had to come for the enrollment process. So you have people getting very upset, people wanting to leave. Well, let's see, where are you on the list? Okay, you're number 50 on the list. You could probably leave and come back in about 2 hours or in about 3 hours, but we don't know because if we skip over you, you're just gonna have to go to the end of the list. So we had a heated, very
Yeah,
very
high
heated
stakes.
families. Yeah, people got it got very upset with us. Tensions escalated. Staff had to deal with that. They had to send us staff from other departments to try and help out. The staff that they let go, if they could come back, we would bring them back as temporary staff, but most of them had found other jobs. So it was really difficult to navigate. Anyway, uh, kind of fast forward, the issue reached the board. My supervisor publicly said that she had no idea the cuts would cause this impact. Exactly. And so that taught me a huge lesson. Here, I felt protected. I felt that I had loyalty from a supervisor, a direct supervisor. I felt I did what I had to do to protect myself, that I had done the right work, but I realized that I hadn't protected myself structurally. So
Mm.
I informed her verbally. I informed her with a written document. She came back and verbally told me, we understand. And that for me, I took it as we've got your back, which was the complete opposite of what actually happened.
What was the fallout? Like, did you get blamed? Did the
Yeah,
dust roll down the
when
hill?
she said, I mean, it all kind of after the whole thing happened, the summer was over and all the complaints went to the board. They actually had a board meeting. I actually spoke with her before that and she said she kind of asked me, walk me through the whole process and what happened. I said, well, just like I told you in the report that I gave you prior to all this happening, that this is what the fallout would be, that we would have families waiting. I even told her 9 hours is what the number I gave her. Staff worked until midnight. I worked until midnight every night. We actually had families leaving the office at midnight. We would lock up the doors and then we would start all over again at 7 in the morning the next day. So exactly what I told her is exactly what happened. So I walked her through. She said, okay, thank you. No worries. I've got your back. Then all the board meetings were televised. And I'm sitting there watching her on the board meeting. I'm thinking, okay, we're good. We're covered. And as soon as the words came out of her mouth, I kind of went, wow. She threw me under the bus. It was all our fault. She blamed it on our department. The staff, demoralized. I felt like I had nobody to support me. And the blame all came on us. And so,
Hmm.
the one thing I learned was that I trusted the verbal alignment instead of securing shared accountability. I did not ensure that everything that I had given to her that had been followed through with something written, that something had been put in place, notifying me that in fact the administration, upper administration, that the superintendent had been made aware, that they had looked at my proposal, that they had seen what the impact would be. None of that happened, but I trust it, you know? And so when I look back on this, what was my misstep or my mistake? Well, you know what? I don't consider it a misstep or mistake other than I didn't know any better than to secure additional assurances that the information had made it all the way up the ladder, that it had made it to the people who were making the decisions. And so I have learned that, I was young, I was younger. I didn't know a lot about how the systems worked. And this is how I actually learned to, as a leader, that when I can predict the outcome, I need to protect myself from being the scapegoat, and that leadership does require clarity and it requires containment. And so I am very big on systems and processes. And I think that that was one of those lessons that I learned back then that kind of changed how I operate moving forward, how I operated moving forward. And so when I look back on everything now, I have systems and processes in place for absolutely everything. I create them as I go. Like they say, you build as you're flying you build the plane as you're flying it. I don't do anything that I don't already put into an SOP, or as I'm creating the systems, I'm going back and saying, okay, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to happen. And I think 3 to 4 to 5 steps ahead on what potentially the problems could be, but then also how do I mitigate those if this, then that, if this, then that. So
Are
that
you
was
putting those processes? Are you like documenting those processes like even before you've used them once, or do you like, okay, now I've done this a couple of times and now I'm documenting it? Or
no.
you're writing them first revision, I'm gonna follow this. If it doesn't work, then you're revising?
Then I revise it, exactly. So right now, a perfect example is the RV park. We're in the process of purchasing an RV park.
Oh, yeah, tell us a little bit about that first.
Yeah. So I'm excited. This is something new for us. My partner and I were looking at we're working on housing, providing housing, affordable housing, housing to the underserved, any type of housing. And so we have a couple projects that we're working on. I have a portfolio where my husband and I do rent properties out locally, and we're working on another project where we will be doing transitional housing for families fleeing domestic violence. And so the other part of it was another asset class, which is RV parks. And we just want to scale a little bit faster. We know that in the situation that the economy is going, that a lot of families are looking for more affordable housing. And one of those options is mobile home parks and RV parks. Families are buying RV campers and they're choosing to do extended stays at RV parks, and they're actually living there. So we found a park that we like, and we're in the process of doing all the due diligence and working the contract through. And hopefully, by the time you and I get off this interview, we'll already have it under contract. So we're at that point now. But I've been doing
Awesome.
some work on this now for a few weeks, and I've been developing the SOPs. I've been developing all the processes and getting that in order because I know this is something that I'm going to be working through on this park. And so as I'm doing everything for this park, I'm creating the SOP. As I'm doing this and that, I'm creating everything, all the templates and all that is being put neatly into a folder so that when we go to the next RV park that we acquire, I already have everything in place. So, yeah.
Amazing. We need some of that over here in our house.
Well,
We're a couple just like almost straight
two
visionaries.
visionaries. Two hardcore visionaries.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, need to work on those SOPs for sure. That's really interesting to write it down before you actually start. Kinda has some in my mind, it's making some connections with like in software engineering, which is what I've done for 30 years, is like behavior driven design. And it's kind of like this thing where you're writing out these specifications before you write any code. And then you write the code. And as long as those specs kind of are satisfied, then you know you've got software that is behaving the way that you have designed it. It's kind of interesting. I might be able to think about it that way and like, okay, I need to write down the specs for the processes for the RV stuff. Cause I mean, we're also that's in our future too. You're focusing on the longer term stays, not the transient resort
No.
style parks.
No, we're gonna focus on whatever the park calls for. So this park has extended stay guests, but it also has a portion. So it's a hybrid type park. So we're actually looking at focusing on both. How do we make it so that the extended stay guests have more amenities? And then we're looking for amenities that we can add that will be geared towards those who are just there in passing, or who are coming in for maybe a short stay, but they are going to be more transient than the longer extended stay guests that we have.
What's the mix of this particular park? Do you guys have a sense of that yet?
Yeah, I think the majority is extended stay.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, but not so much so that we would say that it tips the scales. So I think there's a good mix.
Are you going to work the uh, transition housing into this somehow? Or are these two separate paths?
They're separate. They're separate. I mean, it falls under my Mount Everest of providing affordable housing to underserved populations. So that's kind of how I see that. And when I look at why that is my Mount Everest is because I come from a background of the education, working with a lot of underserved families. It was public education, and then in the nonprofit world, working with a lot of underserved families, and all the programs that I ran and that I created, and the departments that I created, all focused on helping families that were underserved. But the one common denominator for most of these issues, most of the problems that these families had, was stable housing. And so for me to be in a position now to be able to provide housing is incredible. I never thought it was kind of like a full circle. Like here I've worked with them on the front end, on education, on basics, getting them employment, securing them, helping them with securing some type of education, all everything. But the housing is the one thing that we always struggled with. My staff had to help find housing for them, but it was really difficult.
Mm,
And so now that I can operate from this side and say, okay, this is a need, it's a void, let's figure out how to fix it. And so providing the transitional housing is working with one population that is hard to house. They can't find housing after they flee a situation of domestic violence. And so if they can't find housing, they go right back to the only thing that they know. And so
which
that's
is the
really
yeah.
needed. The RV parks, I think that will fill a void for families who are looking to maybe um, downsize, or they can't afford a home anymore. So they can invest in an RV camper, and they can still live in a place um, that is nice for them, with nature, has amenities. Yeah. And then there are a lot of people who are retiring, and they're choosing to live in an RV park just because they can pick up and go wherever they want.
Right.
So that is, so it's not always the underserved. There's just different lifestyles, different choices. So yeah,
For
so that's
sure.
why I like the RV asset class.
I mean, RV life it's pretty nice. Like we did that for some extended times. We did, I think our longest was, like I said, I think 3 months was our longest trip on the road. And there's a lot to like about it. I mean, yeah, it's affordable, and you do get to see lots of really cool places, especially in the western half of the United States. There's so many parks and so much nature to be explored. But other benefits are like you can't carry around a bunch of stuff, right? So it's a forcing factor for jettisoning all of the extraneous. And then it cleans up fast, and it warms up fast, and it cools down fast, right? All of these things that kind of helps declutter your life in many
Yeah.
ways. Yeah, it's a good time. More time spent focusing on exploring nature and being with friends and family.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get you out glamping.
Glamping, yes. I actually did that this summer.
Did you?
Well,
See,
one night.
I think that glamping may be even more rustic than RV life. I mean, you can get some pretty nice campers.
I did it one night, and I did it on a beach, and it was an
Okay.
igloo with air conditioning, a bathroom, and a shower. So it really wasn't, roughing it that much. But that's about
Yeah,
as
but I mean, with an RV, right? I mean,
yeah.
if you're doing like, you know, like a diesel pusher or, a Class C RV. I mean, you've got, I mean, you might even have like a washer and dryer in your RV.
All right, I think I could
Right?
do that.
Ours was like 31 feet, and we had the whole left side of it when we were set up would slide out. And so the thing was like 300 square feet, something like that. It was crazy.
I've seen some really nice ones that I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I think I could do that. I think I could live in one of those."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully more of them move away from some of the gaudy design. Like, I think a lot of the designs are like for dirt mitigation. The colors and palettes and all the swirls and swooshes, like that stuff's got to go away. But for the most part, those things, it's a really fun lifestyle. So if people wanted to follow along on your journey, where could they do that?
Well, I have an Instagram and I have my YouTube, and they can follow me. The handle is the same, at Luz Ramirez Consulting. And
Okay.
I am on my YouTube channel. I've focused mostly on the grant writing because like I said, I am consulting on that and I'm helping people learn. And the one thing that I am really more looking to do with the grant writing is that I want others to learn how to do it and that they have access to free money. That's really the bulk of it. I'm not interested in doing the actual grant writing. I just don't have time for that. I want to really focus on my projects. And I will be using grant writing as an option to secure funding for my projects that I'm working on. As a matter of fact, one of the projects that I am doing right now, most of it will be paid through 3 different grants that I have access to. So I'm doing I'm doing a full development paid mostly by grants. That's huge. So this is knowledge that I have. This is something that I've acquired and I've perfected over time. So how can I not share that with others? So my YouTube channel actually does focus on that. I have office hours within Owners Club that I hold every 2 weeks. And there I've been going through the whole process and educating and teaching a little bit about the grants from beginning to through the process of how to start applying for the grants. And the other thing I've done is that I've started a live. When I say I've started a live, I need to keep it more, I need to make it more of a consistent thing and set a date and time that I'm going to continue doing it. And in the lives, the goal is to anybody who is interested in coming in, since they're not anybody who might not be have access to Owners Club or access to the recordings, they can come in and ask any question they have about the grant writing, and I can go ahead and answer them for them live. The other thing is I am making available my recordings from office hours on my YouTube. So if they reach out, then I can go ahead and give them links to access those, and so they can start seeing what I've been educating on.
Yeah, we got to find someone to take over your mantle of the active grant writer to then go do that because like I'm not actually going to go out and write a grant. That would not be a good application of my time. I need to find someone who has the experience. And unfortunately, it sounds like she is not interested in writing the grants herself
I have
anymore.
friends. I have friends. So I have friends who have been grant writing, and I've talked to them before about doing the service with me, working with me, alongside me, side with me, and I'm sure they'd be open to
Yeah,
it.
have the Ramirez agency, right? And you're the
Yes.
figurehead of it. And then you've got a team of grant writers.
Yeah, finding the grant writers is not a problem. It really isn't. It's more about finding what you need, finding the that intersect of what is it that you are looking to do, and then let's find the grants that you need and then guide you to that. And then finding the grant writer is not that difficult.
It's been an area that I've long been interested in. It's been mysterious to me, like how do you actually find and go about doing this? I understand that it's not a fast process, but we talked, I don't know, I think a couple of months ago, and you clued me in that it's maybe not as long of a process as I thought it was. Um, but yeah, I'm certainly interested, and I'd love to hear more about the development that's being paid almost completely by grants. We'll talk more in Miami, but our this affordable housing initiative in Florida would certainly benefit from your expertise.
Yeah, yeah. Once we're further along, I'm documenting the process, and so we'll go ahead and talk about it more once it's a done deal. Right now, we haven't broken ground yet. Right now, it's all still, there's a lot of background work that needs to be done, especially when it's a brand new development. There's a lot that needs to be done, and so I'll talk about it more later. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Luz,
Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
and we'll see you in just a couple days.
Yeah, I know. Looking forward to Miami weather.
Hey, it'll be cool though. You don't have to worry about it being hot and humid.
I know. I'm really looking forward to being down there right now.
Bring a jacket. It should be sunny.
It's 67 to, like, 70 degrees, right?
Yeah.
I don't need a jacket. I'm a Midwesterner. That's shorts
Okay,
weather
right.
for me.
Yeah. Maybe that's bathing suit weather. I don't know. You'll be down at the beach running through the waves.
I might be.
We went just a quick little side thing. We went to the beach. I got family in town for the holidays, and we went over to the beach, and like I'm bundled up in like a down parka, and it was 65, something like that.
Oh my gosh, I'll tell you, I've made fun of my cousins. I told you my cousins lived in Tampa for many years, and every time I would go and visit, or they would come up here, actually, it was the other way around. I would go and visit, and they would have, like, little sweaters and, like, jackets, and I was, like, my tank top and my shorts and my skirts, just enjoying the weather. They'd come up here, and they were wearing winter coats in 65-degree weather, and I'm looking at
Oh
them
yeah.
going, "What is wrong with you people?" "Oh, our blood is thinner. Ever since we
Yep.
moved down to
I
Florida,
was
our
just
blood."
gonna make that joke.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like, so no, and we actually we were in Miami a couple years ago in January, and we were on the beach every day. We loved it. It was great.
Yep. It should be beautiful. All right, we'll see you soon.
All right, see you soon.